All right, we are here in this current life with Boris Walter.
Yes.
And, Boris Walter, awesome pod.
Yeah,
we looked
incredible.
At a lot of different things which we'll get Walter to talk about, but you are going to want to listen. But speaking of current life and changing your state of mind, this is sponsored by Raunchy Brewing.
Raunchy Brewing. Yes, Raunchy Brewing, the beer that's actually good.
Yeah.
I love the lager. The lager's my favourite.
Yeah.
And the Sir Henry's stout is bloody good.
And Sir Henry is from an 1800s time who brewed some stout, and Ian Jeffrey has been told the recipe and he's bottled it up.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and also big shout out to
alltradescover.com.au, which you can see behind if you're watching.
there we go.
Behind our guest there, alltradescover.com.au, they are...
Looking after the little guy, subcontractors, individual sole traders. You've got all your indemnity, public insurance, your tools, anything basically that you need insured. They're easy to work with and looking after the little guy.
Absolute legends.
If you're a captain of a ship and you jump off and you need your ship insured.
And I think we've got
That'll
an
make sense
exciting
later
new sponsor starting next week,
Yeah.
Delby, so that's going to be
watch
kind of
your
cool.
space.
I do need to go. So let's touch on our guest, Boris Walter.
What did we speak about, Boris?
We touched on the convergence of psychology and spirituality or metaphysics. Is there a sensible link between the human experience of spirituality and phenomena?
Love that.
To the reductive materialist model of science.
Yeah.
We need to know more about that. But I think what was most important here is we discussed the actual phenomenal cases.
Yeah.
Because if we are experiencing these kinds of phenomenal things with no understanding, then it's absolutely part of our experience, and we need to be more sensible and courageous to navigate those topics.
Yeah, boy.
100%.
Lots of past life stuff and really, really cool mind fuckery.
Oh,
That's the way I'm going to just
one of your favourite episodes. One of your favourite
Yeah.
episodes. Bloody awesome. But yeah, cheers for coming on.
Let's get
Welcome.
hard.
Thank you.
Let's get hard.
Welcome to Hard Yarns Podcast.
I am fucking fat.
Anything Chris White says, please disregard it.
5D is actually a state of being. It's a unity consciousness.
That was Hard Yarns with me, Frankie Rose. So I'm going to throw it over to your co-host.
Daniel Delby.
And Cameron Branch.
I would do this and then I'd gong.
Free in attendance for the millions listening at home. Let's get hard.
Okay, cool.
So,
Cool, perfect. Very nice to have you here.
yeah.
Boris. That was that name just feels. I think it feels.
GoldenEye 007.
I don't know if it feels right or wrong. It feels like Boris.
Let me help you out.
Feels very
then.
Russian.
Yeah.
Let me help you out. It feels wrong because you know I don't look like a boss.
No, you don't. That's exactly what it
Right?
is.
It's like, can I trust this guy? 'Cause he's looking more like a Denzel or something.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no, Boris. My mum, she was obsessed with Boris Becker when I was born.
Ah,
and,
nice.
She's
Tennis player.
German.
Yep.
And so I got Boris, and I had to really just try explain my name to everyone
Yeah.
as I grew up as a kid. Then,
Right,
'cause I
yeah.
don't look like a Boris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
He just went to jail, right?
Something like, I know
Yeah.
he's in chaos. That's all I know.
Yeah. He tax evasion.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. He's
So-
an angry person as well, apparently.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I try to be the opposite of that and zen out.
Sick. So let's maybe go straight into it.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I'm excited by this
Yeah. It's gonna
because,
be-
you were introduced by Heidi Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mutual sort of hookup, I guess. And
Yeah.
she thinks very highly of you.
Okay, I'll
So-
take that.
So
Yeah.
what's the background and the specialty and how did you get into what you're into? So we get a little bit of a base level.
Yeah.
I was a Boilermaker welder
I'm
before this.
Sheet
In,
metal.
in this life or
yeah. Who
I was a
knows
sheet
what
metal fab welder, so
Okay.
similar. Yeah, not too far off.
Yeah, I was like 10 years mining, then offshore.
Yeah.
As an offshore Boilermaker welder.
So
And
blokey
then-
bloke.
Yeah, I was on the tools, man, and like that was my life. It wasn't until I really sat on the Wheatstone platform. I was on construction for that, and I was like, all right, Boris, this is pretty much as good as it gets in terms of money for this type of an industry. Say you had this for the rest of your life, would you be content? And the answer was no. That was a scary confrontational question inside. It's like, I'm sitting there offshore and like probably the best money I could make.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're still not happy. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do if money's not the goal anymore? And it was, okay, well, if money wasn't an issue, what would you do with your time? And it was like, well, if you followed me since I was like a a teenager, I'm always in D&Ms with people.
Yeah.
Every party you'll catch Boris in the corner just in some deep and meaningful chat about life, you know? So I love that. And I found that when I was mining and offshore, I was just, you'll find me again, zooming out of work, not even realizing where I am, just taking someone on a journey inside. And then the guy's opening up to me, twice my age, and just had me thinking, why would they trust me to such degree?
And they're not even allowed ecstasy on site, hey?
Exactly, right?
It's like natural.
Very natural, right? And so there I was just thinking, okay, well, psychology, being with people, that's what I would really enjoy doing. But I'm not an academic. I barely even know how to write an essay. What the hell is that? But I'm like, if I don't try, I'm forever going to be like wondering. So I just had a chat with Yasmin. I said, how would you feel if I went to study psychology at university? And she's like, that's what you want, do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Took a big pay cut, studied and worked away at the same time on a 2-and-2 roster while I was studying full time. And the lecturers were great, understood my situation. They really commended me for doing it. So they worked around my schedule as well. I was bringing my books and assignments out there as well. And finished a 3-year degree full time, psychology and counseling. And then went into master straight after for psychotherapy and counseling, and then finished. That's where my research was on reincarnation or transmigration of the soul in psychology.
Wow.
Sick.
Because, I mean, doing something like that, taking the risk, I've been there as well, and having a partner that supports that. Like me and my ex-wife now, we divorced obviously, but aside from that, she still lended a lot of support behind me to chase those sorts of dreams and to doing stuff like that. So having a partner like that to support you is very important. It's good to have that base and that like grounded sort of.
She just comes in to film that bit for you.
She's
Talking about me?
You talking about me? Yeah. But,
she knows a compliment when she hears one.
Yeah. So,
So what was it? Psychology degree for 3 years?
Psychology counseling is a double major.
Yep.
You're right. So counseling and psychology are not the same thing. And then the masters of psychotherapy and counseling, again, not the same as psychology.
Yeah.
Very two different things.
So let's break that down. Psychology is like how the mind works and why we do things, and counseling is trying to help and aid that.
Yeah. So basically, and this no one really knows the difference either out there, and it's probably a problem because they don't know what to look for. A psychotherapist and a psychologist are two different fields. Yeah. So I'm a psychotherapist. So anyway, psychology is basically the scientific approach to understanding human behavior analytically, right? So very objective. It draws upon the very reductive materialist method of observing behavior. Yep. Then it categorizes behavior into abnormal psychology, normal psychology, and then it creates treatment methods accordingly, right?
And that's already littered with problems
very
immediately.
So. Yeah. Psychologists it's not a problem because you can have many individuals operate under psychology that draw upon their own beliefs and methods as well within the framework of psychology. But essentially when you go to study psychology, it's an objective means to studying human behavior, right? Yeah. So it's a very behavioral approach. You have many branches within it, but still the dominant one is it's a scientific approach to behavior. So they will work with disorders and then based on those categories, utilize templates for treatment methods. So it's very general. Yeah. Psychotherapy, on the other hand, is specifically about the therapeutic room, the dynamics of the room.
As in where you're sitting.
So what happens in therapy, right? So how you get someone to the point that they are now fully functional, right? They don't have to be normal psychology or abnormal. It's just how do you get them into an optimal state of being regardless of, say, the templates. Yeah. Meeting an individual on how they make sense of the world uniquely. Yeah. So it takes longer usually. Psychologists, you get 10 sessions and you're out. So it's very get in, get out sort of approach because there's so many people that need help. But psychotherapy is like usually personality disorders, long drawn out therapy, right? You're going right into the essence of how this person makes sense of the world. It's not generalized.
Because my normal is different to your normal, which is different to his normal.
100%.
But society consider X, Y, Z, this is normal. Anything outside of that, we need to fix.
That's like the, I think Alan Watts talks about it when he's talking about you see the same situation from different perspectives. Is like looking at a newspaper through your eyes and through a microscope. If you look through it, look at it through the microscope, you're going to see tiny little dots. But you take that perspective back and you're going to see this formed picture. And if you go further back again, it's going to be blurry, it's hard to read. So it's always a matter of your perspective, whereas the situation is still exactly the same.
Right. That's the forest for the trees analogy as well. Yeah. You see some people are right up in the forest. They only see tree and then they see the bark on the tree. This tree is a problem. Yeah. Right. They're right in the mix of everything. Right. Yep. And then others might be, and so for that person, you might get them to zoom out. Oh, what's it like to actually see the big perspective because they're so narrowed on their problems in life, right?
Yeah.
Everything's a big deal. But then you got people that are too zoomed out. They only see the forest and they miss the details of things. They use general black and white statements about the world. Their relationship's usually pretty short-lived maybe. There's a whole bunch of characteristics that come with how someone's too zoomed out, lacking responsibility, accountability maybe, you know? So you're just meeting an individual where they make sense of the world, right? And then trying to, so I'm leaving my stuff out of it. My shit. So psychotherapy is all about leaving my shit out of it as a therapist, knowing I'm going to have my biases. I might have been beat up by a dude in high school that really messed me up, right? And I held that. And then I get a client that comes in and looks like him. Right? And he's doing similar things like that. It's like, my trigger's going to come in and they're like, F this dude, man. Like he doesn't, you know, I might be more harsh. So I've got to notice what is it in me that's affecting the way I'm turning up for this person. So my mum issues, my dad issues. If I get a couple, am I taking the side of the woman, the guy, you know, noticing my little, so that's all in psychotherapy too.
So you should take the side of the guy though, right? As a general rule, or?
Definitely. You just ruined all my couples clients now.
Does that come back to that sort of like Eckhart Tolle sort of idea of watching your thoughts and sort of understanding why you're thinking certain things?
Dude, you've got it. It doesn't matter. Eckhart Tolle, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, every individual that has been a philosopher of mind will always say the one thing. Our goal is to be fully functional psychologically, meaning accountable for our words, our actions, to notice what's happening inside me as I turn up for you guys. What do you guys mean to me? And to just try always be curious about that. So I'm not blaming the world around me for being a certain way. That guy's an idiot. That guy pissed me off. My ex is this. It's like, no. Notice how your stuff infiltrates your lens and affects the way you interpret the world. That's what we're all doing.
It's easiest to notice, and I've said this a few times on the podcast, the way I notice it is like road rage. Like the same situation 2 days apart, one could make me go, if I'm running late, I could go, fuck this guy, he's just cut me off for no reason. And then the next day I'm completely fine, I'm not rushing to get anywhere, someone does the exact same thing, I'm like, it's all good, man. Like, everyone makes mistakes. Exact same situation. I can have a completely different reaction, and it's dependent on me and how I'm feeling and what's going on with me, not necessarily the other.
You sound like a responsible adult.
I've loosely termed it as a teacher over 10 years is literally just resilience. Instead of blaming the world for your issues, you got to look at yourself first. And I've said only once or twice on here. A work example was when I first started teaching. These year 10s were like off task. They hated. Like they weren't doing the work, and I was like, they suck. Why aren't they doing it? These guys are fucking useless. And then I spoke to one of my mentors, and he's like, well, what are your lesson plans? And I showed him. He goes, well, would you enjoy it? I was like, no, I wouldn't. So from that minute, I was like, okay, I'm going to look inwards. If that was me, what am I doing wrong? It's not them. Let me take some responsibility first. Then when I fix that, all of a sudden, the class was better. I was like, oh, what a surprise, you know?
So significant what you just said, because what you've just done was you've changed a belief system. The belief system was the world is happening to me, to then realizing that the world happens in me and then it comes out. It's a completely different approach to how you experience the world.
100%. That's one of those, even people like Gary Vee will use that same mindset now in a business sense. They'll be like, every single thing that happens, whether it's my fault or not, I'm going to take accountability for. Like, you know, the idea of if I walk out in front of a bus and get hit by a bus, it's my fault for not looking. That sort of thing, you know?
Accountability is the hardest thing for people to do, though, because it's easier to blame for somebody else rather than go, that was me. Like, accountability is scary.
100%.
For a lot of individuals.
Do you even look, it's hard to like, I've been looking back on my life for the last 2 or 3 years going, fuck, like some of the things I've done have been quite selfish and didn't realize that, or maybe I didn't put myself first and those sorts of things. But you still have to go, well, that was me. And I'm starting to get like,
or when there's a consequence, and you have to own up to it. That's the ballsiest shit.
It hurts. It's like, it's hard. You're like, fuck, I'm going to have to go to that person that I've just been rinsing for the last 2 years and go, you were right.
It's because it's your death of your ego, and all of a sudden you're not the best person on the planet, and to face that and go, oh shit, I'm a piece of shit.
Well, not necessarily a piece of shit, but yes. Maybe.
People don't want that. You never want to be like, oh wow, I was wrong, because everybody craves that importance. The ego needs to be right. I'm right, you're wrong. And then the minute you have to face that reality, it's like, it's very humbling. It's very hard to do.
So that's my work is how do I get someone to face that responsibility and accountability? Because it's not obvious, right? even you might say, yeah, great, everyone should know that this is the truth, that it's actually them that's doing everything.
Yeah.
But you try to tell someone that is already like psychologically fragmented, severely traumatized.
Yeah.
They don't have the mental capacity or the wisdom or the stability of mind to wear the level of anxiety that says that I'm the one doing all of this.
Yeah.
They would crumble. Psychologically, they would crumble. So it's like a narcissist is a great example.
Yeah.
They don't, it's not that they're evil people, right? It's just that they have had a serious fragmentation of their psyche and their identity at a very young age, where they do not have a healthy self-identity. So what they have to do is they have to create a false narrative about themselves and then have everyone validate that so they can stay sane, safe and sane, stable. Right. So you go and pop that bubble thinking, let me show you truth, because truth is best than anything.
Yeah.
You pop that bubble and that person now is like a train wreck. So say they have a family or they have a job, they can't function in any of those capacities if you go and pop that bubble.
Yeah.
So as a therapist, you have to think, well, what's this person ready to hear in this moment?
Yeah.
And gradually reveal truth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Can you give us like a case study, and because you don't use names and stuff?
Yeah.
Give us like a case study of like what was presented to you and how you would slowly go about fixing it, because that really interests me.
I had one of the best ones. So narcissists, they tend not to volunteer themselves into therapy. It's usually they've been given an ultimatum by their partners or someone around them, because they never volunteer. There's never anything wrong, right?
Yeah.
But I had someone that he had his world falling apart, and severe NPD. So not just narcissistic tendencies, but narcissistic personality. So like ticks the boxes, right? So you're dealing with a fragmented child, the mental capacity of a young person, a little boy that's presenting himself as an adult. Anyway, so
and in the workplace, these people are often the ones that seem super charming, nothing gets done, and it's always someone else's fault, and the workplace is horrific.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And they can be very competent in terms of the 3D world, like making stuff happen in business as well, because they demand the world to be a certain way.
Right.
And they will, like a narcissist won't fold.
Yep.
Right. So in terms of you operationalize that person as a CEO or a manager, and they will make sure the world happens the way they need it.
Yeah.
So in terms of productivity, it could be a great thing to have a narcissistic boss, which is why you'll see them at the top.
Right.
They'll do things and say things to get the bottom line happening.
Yep.
And they'll throw out your emotional needs as a consequence.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's the type of person.
Is there in business, is there a benefit to that?
Well, that's what
I mean.
You get shit done. You get more productive.
But then,
absolutely.
But would the negative be the culture that you're breeding, and then potentially the company going, right, I can't do this anymore? Well,
no, the company would love that person, but their colleagues would fucking hate them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's say if you're an investor, your money, say all your life savings is in this company, right? You only care about your return, honestly. That's why you put the money in there. You're not an altruistic person. You're just trying to get by.
Yeah.
You invest your money. You're like, you guys know what you're doing, and I hope you just return my money. At least give me some return on that, right? Now, they've got a question. Say ethically, you've got this narcissistic boss. You find out he's within that company, but he's giving you a return that is significant, right? And so then you find out the big revelation that the culture of the work is disgusting and they're not happy. But you know that if you run that gamble where you switch it up to some more holistic, PC culture, and we're really taking our time, you realize that your returns are diminishing to the point where it's no longer feasible for you. It's like moral dilemma. What do you do as an investor? So that's where we got big companies. They don't care about the bottom line, but the management, the people on the floor, they're all the ones experiencing it. Their emotions are involved in it, but the investors won't.
I think I think John Elliott spoke about that with us. Like trusting the people that work for you and treating them well and long.
So
run.
John's our sponsor behind you. He had his insurance company. He walked across Australia for 3.5 years with 3 camels. You should listen on. It's a great episode. Fucking super interesting.
Very good.
But while he left, just before he left, like his company was going to shit because he had the wrong person that was treating everybody poorly. And then he fixed that, and then he came back and it was smooth operating, like he trusted with his life.
And because he backed them in as well, and he treated them fairly and didn't treat them like
anyway,
shit.
you'll see we do this with our pod. Like we'll find things. We started with a case study, we get it, and then we'll bring it back. So sorry, your case study, he's fallen apart and he's come to see you.
Oh yeah, just considering the topic we want to go now, I'll just throw like 2 minutes on this case study then.
No, we can take our time on it.
Well, essentially, this case study, this client of mine was probably the most difficult client I'd ever had at this point. And I was 2.5 years to 3 years into my private practice at this point. And anyway, so what I was dealing with, not only his familial issues, but like I said, the dynamics of the therapeutic room is very difficult when you have someone with personality disorder or issues, because they will hold you accountable, saying things like, oh, what do I pay you for?
Yeah.
You know, because you're making me leave here feeling shit. Right? And it's like, all I've done was revealed truth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Knowing that I need you to come as closest to your truth as possible for you to have a healthy, functioning relationship and life out there where you stop blaming the world.
Yeah.
However, it's at the cost of you feeling shit in this moment, right? And then having that conflict of, what the hell do I pay you for? And like, you know, this isn't working for me. It's like, yeah, maybe, but I'm also feeling like all the other people in your life, where it's like, when we try to reveal truth to you, this is the reaction we get, and then you run away.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got a choice now. It's either you run away knowing that I am on your team, right? You run away from this and your life stays the same.
Yeah.
Or you confront this with me. We have our rupture. Relationships are about having a rupture.
Yeah.
It's not always perfect. And then you come back the next day and we fix this. We understand what happened in this argument, right? And so they come back, but it's constantly back and forward with that. But essentially with a narcissist, what they do is, so he's telling me all of his relationship breakdowns. This woman's a bitch. She did this to me. The other one, she has no love for me, no care for me. My mum's this. My dad left me. Everyone else did this to me, right? And even though, say, they're talking about their partner, my girlfriend did this to me, she's so evil. You might as well transfer that girlfriend to mum or dad, you know?
In Tasmania, they do.
Tasmania. I'm offended.
Yeah.
No, and so that you're dealing with this. It's just a young person that's
Yeah.
stuck in this adult body, and so even though he sees his adult girlfriend, his younger boy inside sees his mum that didn't do him enough, and so she didn't turn up the way he needed her to turn up, which is fair.
Yeah.
But what's happened is he's left that trauma and that energy and the mindset of that young boy unresolved, and so he's carrying that through his life, and he's pasting that avatar on all these new love objects. You know, the female love object. It's too similar to the original pain, which is mum, but they don't see it, right? And so you're trying to get them to recognize that it's not this woman, this avatar. There's something behind that it's coming from within you. The algorithm that runs through you is women do not protect me. Mum didn't protect me. And now you're projecting and pasting that onto this girl, and then you self-sabotage because you want to really get angry at mum. She didn't serve you. So what you're going to just, you get a girl that's healthy and actually good, you will do something to ruin that. And so you have to slowly show them that it's you, man. It's you, but battling them the whole time.
Now, that would be like Chelsea, we've had on quite a bit. She's a friend of mine. She's a counsellor, and she's always been strong on childhood trauma shapes everything moving forward. So whatever that issue was with him as a kid, where his mum wasn't there for him, his protective mechanism was to switch off or whatever it was and blame everyone else but himself or whatever that was. And then he's continued that through in his life. Is that what happened with him? Or,
Yeah, classic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basic ego dysfunction. So the moment your ego does what it's designed to do, which is to protect something vulnerable part of you, it will then turn up and make sure it creates a lens, a false lens that makes sure you survive and keep doing the thing you most need to do.
And how did... Now, it sounds similar to like literally dealing with my students that are young kids. They get mad at you. I go, all right, no worries. They leave class. We'll talk about this later. Comes back when he's calmed down and he's out of that mindset. Is that what would happen the next day? We come to therapy and go, okay, yesterday I blew up. Or is he not that? Was it a person like that not really that self-aware?
NPD, they're really not, man.
I wish so frustrating.
You guys should actually, if there was like video footage of how a therapy looks with the narcissist, right? So they'll come back during the time you haven't seen them. You could say a fully functioning adult, say somewhat healthy. They would reflect on it and desire repair, right? And because you're telling them and instructing them that you need to take responsibility and accountability, and most of them will look at that because it's the homework.
Yeah.
A narcissist will go back home and they will contemplate how you can be wrong. Being me. How is Boris wrong? What angle is he missing? So he's actually devising a plan and a speech almost, how I was wrong.
Wow.
And then you have to deal with that.
Do they train you for that or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the training is very minuscule. You don't have enough time to deal with that. That's why not many people can deal with narcissistic personality types, because they are so draining and difficult. And it's, again, not a judgment. They're not able. They're very severely traumatized people with fragmented psyches and personalities, but they get sent to me.
What kind of time frame are you looking at? And is it like healed, or is it just like more like that person will realize, oh, hang on, here's one of my traumas coming up, or do they not even have
No,
that?
you've got it. The way Cam, you guys were just talking about. Well, one day I got angry at this guy who cut me off on the road. Right.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you are a healthy, functioning adult, you're not healed essentially. But what you're doing is becoming aware of your power in any given moment to choose your actions consciously. I can choose to get angry at this person, and I can make my life more difficult inside my body and relationship-wise, or I can choose not to act and make it a bit different. Both are a gamble, but I'm doing it consciously.
Yeah.
Severe personality disorders do not have that level of conscious awareness.
Right.
They are impulsive and they just act. And then they look at the carnage after. So you're trying to get someone with personality disorders to become more aware of what's happening in the here and now and how they are making sense of the world, so that then they can take responsibility. And then the world starts to look the way they want it.
Yeah.
Stop scratching their head wondering, why is my life always falling to pieces?
Yeah.
Thinking it's the world, as if there's a conspiracy against them, always
Yeah,
ruining
yeah,
it. It's
yeah.
like, no, it's you if you slow down and pay attention.
Yeah, that's so confronting.
They're not healed.
It's like self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. Oh, constantly, man. While never taking any accountability. It's always someone else or the world that's doing it to me.
Yeah, those people frustrate the fuck out of me, honestly. Man. And you can just see, like, you could just like, bro, or chick.
That's me daily,
Like,
man.
How do you have the patience? The patience for the patience.
I sit like this guy here, man.
Yeah.
Because for me, man, like, it's so frustrating. But I guess when you're trained in it, you learn. Is there stuff you have to do to decompress?
Of course, man.
Yeah.
But what does the frustration stem from? Like, what? Obviously, it's not. We can see something like that happen. But where does your frustration? Where does that stem from? Well, why are you frustrated with someone else?
Well, because I've learnt that myself.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, okay, man, I've been in your spot.
Yeah.
But just the slightest change of looking inwards instead of outwards, it helps so much.
But then, and that's what.
But I'm still fucked, man.
Yeah, yeah. But that's my point. Like, is in what in you, and I get the same thing. Like, I'll get, oh fuck, like, why are you thinking like that?
Yeah.
Like, you can do it with your parents or fucking close friends or whatever.
I'm not
and you're
sure.
like, why does it matter? Like, obviously, you care about your friends and family and stuff, and potentially that's why you're frustrated because you want them to understand, no, it's okay or whatever.
Yeah, because really you want them to have a better life. My frustration is like, dude, if you just flipped it a little bit, you're going to enjoy so much more. And also, it's not a nice environment to be around when someone's always like, no, fucking, I can't do this. I got no time to do this.
Correct.
Work, fucking. And because I've managed, I guess, again, I don't expect people to do what I've done, but I've managed to go from teaching full time to flipping into this, into something I love, which is just like, and I hear people complaining about their jobs and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, well, dude, there's 24 hours in a day. You sleep for 7 of them. You've got 17 hours to work on what you want to do. If you're at work for 8, use those other 10 hours or 8 hours as best as you possibly can. But people don't want to hear that because it's too difficult.
Yeah.
Or it reflects on them going, well, I'm actually not doing anything. I just want to
their
complain.
lack of action.
Anyway, we're not the experts here.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is that frustration from our point of view stemming from?
Then you should ask this question. What is it about my impatience that I need this person to be a certain way?
Yes, that's what I'm
right.
What I was getting at.
That is the curiosity, because the world is always just happening. Everyone's flawed. You're flawed. Everyone's fucked. You say your scale of fuck is everyone's fucked. But it's just, to what degree is someone fucked? You know, we're all on that scale, just to different levels, right? But
and I might be fucked.
Yeah.
I might be like the full end of fucked. But because
oh,
my
I
perspective,
think you're on the full end of fucked.
everyone else, I think everyone else is fucked, but really that might be the norm.
Yeah.
And I'm over on the wrong side. Fronting.
Look, it's altruistic if you say, well, I just want this person to live a better life, right? And I've gone through that with many friends. However, there's a one more level you can go to take more accountability and responsibility for it, right? Of your discomfort. And that is, well, if they were functioning better in their life, how would that then relate to me? What would that do to my life? Well, then they wouldn't be such a pain in your ass. You would have more free time. You wouldn't have to be the caretaker so much. You wouldn't have to resolve their financial issues. You wouldn't have to be the one they call every time they make that same mistake that you keep. So it's like, it would essentially be a self-serving idea, but we forget that part. Everything comes down to
comes back to you.
Us. Always does, man. Everything does.
Interesting.
It
So
makes
if it
your life
wasn't
better.
if it wasn't affecting you in any way, and your concerns were there still, I guess that's altruism. That
True altruism?
True altruism.
For someone that goes out of the way to go and serve people that are, say, dysfunctional, you could say it's more of a calling or an altruistic thing or whatever it is. Maybe it's just that job. But essentially, most of us would just, there's we can laugh at someone that's pretty fucked out there, right? It's like,
Yeah.
that's their thing, you know, whatever. But the moment it infiltrates your capacity to live your life the way you want it to, it becomes a problem to some degree, and we'll rationalize it in some way.
Okay. Well, right. So psychology, psychotherapy. Then the masters is the stuff that interests us a lot.
Yeah,
and we
because-
kind of like fully just shrunk that into
Took us a
28 minutes
yeah.
of like 3.5 years.
But still, like from that, like going
Yeah.
down that very interesting field, and
Yeah.
then like where does
Yeah.
reincarnation and
It's-
is this something that you go, right, I want to understand why people think this is a thing, or did you have a pre-existing idea of like,
Yeah.
no, this
Did
is
you
something
fall
I
into
believe
it?
into
Was
a
it
little bit,
accident?
or
No, so this is it. I already had my counseling practice running when I was doing my master's. And so I did some hypnosis training, and then my very first client was this young Australian Caucasian male, 21-year-old bogan, tattoos all over him, painter by trade.
I think I know him.
To give you, well, that's Baz from last week.
I think that's fucking every Australian, sorry.
Every miner on the
Yeah.
site in Pilbara. So essentially, he was coming in for your basic counselling and stuff like that. And I said, look, I've just practiced some hypnotherapy, man. Would you be keen to sort of get into it? And he's like, yeah, man, fuck yeah. So cool. So we went into it, and straight away he starts going, okay, 10-year-old, he's seeing this. 5 years old, he's seeing this stuff. And then he goes down to like, I'm just regressing him through age. By this time, by the way, context, I came out of psychology with a reductive biologist sort of view on psychology, meaning we are just meat computers pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Spirituality was a nice idea, but I didn't have any grounding philosophy or belief too much. You know, psychics were like, yeah, that's a nice idea. So essentially, I'm regressing him, thinking going through his ages to a young boy. Age regression, it's called, right? He starts at 1.5. He's experiencing this, playing with blocks and stuff. He says it's a bit blurry, but this is what's happening. So cool. And then he goes all the way back to his birth, and he's like, oh, I've just been born. Look, and he's like, doctor's passing me to my mum, and I can feel the blanket on my skin. I don't like it. So he's adding some feeling context to it as well. I was like, well, I can't validate or invalidate this, but it's a nice idea.
It kind of makes sense as well, like coming from inside
From
a
a womb
womb
to a blanket?
like this blanket.
he's like, I
that-
don't like it.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, okay.
Okay, but whether it's valid or not, we don't know, and I can't prove it. All I know is it's unlikely for someone to say that with as much emotional conviction that he was as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool. And then this is where everything changed. And I asked a question that no hypnotherapist asks, and I've learned that now. They'll say, and I said, okay, now just go to the time and place that you most need to go to for your healing. I left it up to the subconscious mind to then decide. And then he starts explaining, I'm in this body, I'm 27 years old, and my client's 21. So I'm like, okay, he's projecting himself 6 years into the future. Okay, I'll go with him. And then he starts explaining what he was doing. I was like, cool, I'm taking notes. And I was like, okay, fast forward. He's explaining a body type that wasn't quite his body type as well. And he said his name was Jeremy. I'm like, that's not even his name. So I'm like, where's he going with this? But he's going near something traumatic that we know that the ego can fragment a version of us to play out trauma, so it's not too close to home, right? I'm like, he's really constructing a false identity here to really live out something, So I'm going to go with it, right? This is new. Goes all the way forward, and I'm fast forward. Okay, what happens next? So he's going through this life. And I'm like, okay. He gets all the way to his deathbed, and he's in hospital, right? And I said, okay, how old are you? He says, I'm 72 years old. I said, okay.
It's palindromic of 27.
Right? Hey. And I'm like, okay, well, what's happening? He says, I'm dying of heart failure. I said, okay, you're aware that you're dying? He says, yes. I said, is anyone with you? He says, yeah, my wife, Susan, she's on my left. I said, okay. She's holding my hand. I said, okay. Do you have any children? He says, yes. Axel and Chris, I love them dearly. Off like no doubt in his voice, no hesitation. I'm like, okay, cool. He said, but they're not here. I was like, okay. All right. Is there a date? Is there like, you got a date anywhere around this hospital? And then he just waits about 5 seconds and he says, yeah, September 11, 1981.
Oh.
And I'm like, 81? Backwards?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is 15 years before his birth.
I hell thought you were going to say 2001.
Come on, Boris. You ruined it.
Yeah.
So he's gone now. So I'm writing it down. He's in the past. Okay, cool. So I said, what happens next? And he says, I've just died. I said, okay. So where are you then? Nice. He says, I'm above my body and my wife Susan's still holding my hand. She's crying. I said, okay, what do you notice? he said, if that body's there, what are you? How could I describe you then? Your vantage point. It's like I'm a ball of light. I said, a ball of light? And he's like, yeah, something like that. And he says, and there's this big grand light above me and it's drawing me in. And I'm like, okay, how does it feel? He says, it feels euphoric. I said, okay, if it feels right, continue on, see what happens next. And he passes into this light. And then all of a sudden, here's where it gets weird.
Here's where it gets weird.
Dude, it gets way weirder.
Okay.
And he starts, his voice, so his linguistic style shifts. So the way he constructs his language and his words changes. He's now speaking proverbially, meaning like very proper. Saying things like, just say, I ask him a yes or no question, he'll say certainly instead of yeah. You know, he's a bogan and he's saying certainly. And then anyway, so I said, okay, so if you've just died, right? I said, but you're also born here in 1996. What happens in those 15 years?
Yeah.
And he says, nothing. We waited for this body.
Nice.
I said, we? This body? Says, yes, he will unite people. He was struggling with the fear of isolation in this life here, which he needs to overcome here. But he will unite people in this body. I said, if we,
I'm getting
he,
I love it.
really.
and so I'm like, he, who are
Who's
you
he?
then?
Yeah.
So who are you? And you know what he says? Kleinheid.
Wow.
And I said,
One of the souls.
Kleinheid. So I said, can you spell that? He says, Kleinehaide. I still remember writing it down when he said it. And I said, where's that from? And he goes, it's ancient. You wouldn't understand.
Wow.
So he assumes my knowledge.
Yeah.
You wouldn't understand.
What?
Yeah.
So I'm talking to this this voice
Mm.
that's beyond my client's linguistic capacity.
This guy's pronouns are out of control.
72, yeah.
Fuck.
And so here I am. And I said, okay, so who are you? If you're client, what's your role? What are you doing here? And he's like, you could say, I'm watching over him. Or he says, but some might refer to me as an ascended master. But these are all just names.
Yeah.
They mean nothing.
How are you feeling right now in this when you're going through this? Is this because this would start to
I would be, based off the shit I've read, I would be going so deep, but this would be the first time you've experienced
would you be
this.
excited?
Yeah.
Would you get? Do you think you'd get nervous?
I would love
a little bit like
I'll froth,
something's
man.
happening here.
I was excited.
But you don't want to,
something.
I was excited.
Yeah.
you don't want to impart your bias onto
right.
this person, right? So you
My
just gotta let
scientific
them-
mind
Yeah.
stayed with like this client onwards for the next year. Like my scientific mind was always skeptical.
Yeah.
Seeing where's this coming? Where are they conjuring up this knowledge from?
Yeah.
I've set up experiments and everything for this now.
Yeah. Cool.
You know,
So
yeah.
Kleinheid says,
Kleinheid says, and he goes, there's also a life in Greece and Egypt. Greece, 747 BC. He was a soldier, blah, blah, went through this. He needs to resolve that. Egypt, he needs to resolve this. I said, okay, all right. We go to Egypt, and then he's explaining Egypt, and I'm going to show you an 18-second recording, which he has given me permission
sick.
to use.
Oh wow.
18 seconds, he drops into another language.
Has it been translated since?
Not translated, but I have given it to, and I can't even say the person who has somewhat validated it because he didn't want to be on public record. As
Right.
he's a professor of ancient linguistics.
Yeah.
But when he found out the context of where I got it from, he's like, career suicide. My name cannot go, because it's spiritual.
Yeah, right.
So he's like, but
This
yeah,
is like
essentially.
Sumerian or something.
Okay.
He goes, this language, I'll let you listen to it first.
cool.
And just a couple things to look out for. Just imagine how old he sounds, this
Yeah.
person, maybe what language it might be, and what he looks like.
Just put it close to the mic there.
Okay,
Yeah.
listen to this.
Wow.
What the hell?
That's a
It was almost like, that wasn't his actual, like he didn't sound like that?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, this is a white
Sounds
Australian.
almost
getting
like
like
Arabic,
I'm getting-
like,
Yeah, white Australian bogan with tattoos all over him.
Yeah.
Not much of a vocabulary, not a judgment either.
yeah.
But to put it in context, so I sent that to a particular professor of ancient linguistics, and I didn't tell him the context first. I just said, can you recognize this language? And he said, professional opinion or personal opinion? I said, both. He said, professionally, we have lost a lot of languages from ancient times, but it's definitely Mesopotamian.
Wow.
Right? Which is during that period of time. And then he says, but if I had to guess, it most resembles ancient Egyptian.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that happens to be the context of where he was. And right before when he dropped into this language, he mumbled something first. And I said, what was that? What did you just say? And then he mumbled something else in this other language. And I said, what language is that? And he just says, the first.
This is my favorite episode ever.
That's mad. That's like the start of a horror film.
And then and then I grabbed my phone and put it next to him and recorded.
The Mummy Returns.
Yeah, dude. So that's happened multiple times now.
That's
so
sick.
now I was on a mission to validate, to verify what is.
So this is you've gone into this
Now,
this idea. You've not intended to seek this out.
No way.
You've let him go there himself.
Now, some would say...
I didn't say go to a past life. That wasn't even my belief.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe in spirituality or past life. This guy is like atheist as fuck, man.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to heal him and tell him to go to the point in life in which he's going to be able to help heal his trauma.
Correct. Thinking maybe he might go 11 years old, 9 years, who knows?
Yeah.
But then he's dropped into Jeremy's life.
Yeah, so that matches up with what has shaped a lot of my life beliefs and my life changes, and it's almost an identical experience as Michael Newton, Journey of Souls.
Yeah, man.
Have you read that?
Yep.
Yeah, so his first time he was speaking to this patient, asking him, I think he had back pain or something from memory from the start of the book. So I read Journey of Souls, and he did essentially what you did. He's like, go back to where it hurts, and he went back to an ancient battle where he got stabbed with a bayonet through his back. And the guy's describing in great detail he's dying, and like he's describing what his battalion is and stuff. And the psychologist, Michael, was a amateur historian. He looked it all up, and it was like bang on. And the bloke had no idea what Michael was talking about when he came to.
Yeah.
So he accidentally got into what he termed the superconscious. Is that what yours would be?
Cool.
Like conscious, subconscious, then this superconscious.
Yeah, we're trying to conceptualize it, but it doesn't matter what you call it. All is that we know that if you dissolve the ego deep enough, so beyond, say, what Delby knows is true and not true, with all his frameworks of beliefs and values, if we can dissolve that identity enough, we can allow the subconscious, the superconscious, it doesn't even matter, man. Like it drops into an everything consciousness.
We all love to play close to the edge, like get as close to that idea of like, oh, we're nothing, we're just a temporary spiritual being that's having a temporary experience in a human body. We like to play with that idea, but as soon as you get to that point within your mind where you can accept that means I have to be all right with just not existing, you start to go, nah, but I like what I'm doing here, like I want to experience this, but that's where ego comes into play, because the death of ego is to be fully acceptant of the fact that no, I can die now and it doesn't matter because it's just part of a bigger, grander thing.
So your ego is not a bad thing or a good thing, right? It's just an absolute necessary tool and mechanism of the mind for you to stabilize your identity across time in a social world, which is what we live in. That's the definition of an ego. It needs you to play the game out long enough for you to learn whatever it is you came to learn or experience. If your ego wasn't there, you would find yourself on a fast track to death or isolation.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I'll use some personal stuff that's happened recently. I feel like I've come to this, and this is my ego suggesting this, I guess. I feel like I've come to the end of this. I keep having in my head karmic cycle is sort of ending, and I'm starting a new exciting, the hard times are done and I'm back. The karmic cycle is what keeps coming into my head. It kept coming into my dreams last night, for example. Karmic cycle is ending and I'm moving into this new forward one. What is it in me that's saying that? And is that something?
Is it you, or is it your soul, or is it?
Yeah, exactly. What is it?
Universal consciousness.
Is it I'm doing a lot of inner work, so I'm starting to maybe understand some stuff. But
that's such a trigger word for me. I'm doing inner work.
Yeah, but
that triggers me.
But
so
I have
much,
been trying to understand why I've been protecting myself, for example. Like I've not been open to being vulnerable. I feel like I'm vulnerable on this, but then I am not. I know now, and I won't go too much into that, but I definitely have been holding back in certain ways, and I realised that only just recently. And
if you want to know how much he's been holding back, listen to the Patreon episode on the walk.
But it's such a what's ego death sort of thing. It's like, fuck, you thought you were being open, and you were not.
Anyone at any given moment in time thinks they are doing the best and they are the most open and fully functional in that moment. No matter how far they're on the fucked spectrum of like narcissistic personalities or borderline personalities, multiple personality, DID, it's like they all think they are fully functional usually, until people reflect something different back to them. The world isn't happening the way they thought it was. But anyone at any given moment thinks they are fully functioning. So it's only a question of, do you want to go into the dark, the wilderness, to find out the truth, to see how much of you still is to be explored. You're only operating from a fragment of a percentage of who you really are.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not a game of let's hurry up and get to the end of now I know everything about myself. It's not about that. It's more about the process of self-discovery, and that's the exciting part, like doing a puzzle.
So let me ask what you've started to form any beliefs from, because you said you've done experiments and you've sort of gone down this track, which is super interesting to me, because I'm of the belief, after reading Michael Newton's book and a few other ones, Psychic Mediums, his past life, everyone has the same sort of explanation as best as they can in human words as to what happens with us with reincarnation. We're a soul. We are here, like he said, I'm waiting for this body because he needs to experience whatever that is so he can grow as a soul. And then when you go back to that light that you're speaking of, the place where Kleinheid was from, we're all some form of a soul that's trying to get closer back to the original source. Then we're in this life to, like, whatever my soul is here, I'm here for a specific lesson. And I won't try and act like I'm grandiose and fucking smart enough to know what that is, or act like I understand it. But it's kind of shaped my beliefs, because why would all these different people around the world, there's no conspiracy. They don't talk to each other and go, hey, when we die, the soul passes on to a safe place, like a waiting room. You're greeted by people you love. You go back and you reincarnate again. Like, there's no conspiracy for them to all say the same thing. But people that have done past life regressions and spoken to souls or whatever it is, or psychic mediums that claim they can speak to other entities, they all come back to this same sort of explanation and pathway. What have you found from your research? Is it similar, or is it completely different?
No, I'm getting a framework now of what I think is going on. There's a lot to it, but essentially what we're noticing is that the human experience this is where it's so complicated, but we're learning with our human mind. We're learning slowly, but it's as if there was someone watching us, just laughing at us, how far off we are. But put it this way: if the ego is willing to step aside long enough for you to experience, say, broader consciousness, regardless of what that is, then you go into a field of energy that disobeys Newtonian physics beyond time and space. So even linear time disappears. So the idea of past lives, I was then, now I am now, that's only because we are now reading and experiencing that and speaking about that from a human perspective, where we measure time linear. We measure, so we experience the 3D, and then fourth dimension is time. So time runs so we can experience a moving object of the third dimension, but time does not exist beyond this fourth dimension or third dimension experience. When you go beyond your egoic state, you can experience beyond time. And so how do we even navigate that sensibly is, well, we look at the way we have now understood quantum physics, where we're looking at the concept of entanglement, where you can have two particles. Are you guys aware of that?
Yes.
Is that where you separate them and they do the same thing?
Correct. The entanglement means that they are obviously operating of the same system, and that when you manipulate one, the other one responds in real time without any time delay. So as you manipulate one, the other one is affected. And that disobeys Newtonian, say, basic local theory of physics, because even your phone, you can receive a call, but you know that it came from another phone, went to a tower to your phone. It still passes through time and can be measured. Whereas the entanglement is real time.
So
is
not
no
action
delay.
reaction, it's just action.
Action, same time.
And at what point does the observer play a part in this?
The observer effect is a massive thing. Without the vantage point of human lens, this is where the reductive materialist model for science, what we say, this is scientific or spiritual, and they're not the same. Again, you're measuring everything through the human 5 senses, right? And then you're saying this is true, but it's only true through the lens of the 5 senses, So yes, beyond that, you could say we can't even measure, or we can't understand beyond what we can actually interpret through our 5 senses. But now the quantum physics, last year, the Nobel Prize went to these 3 quantum physicists or theoretical physicists, and finally have proven the non-local theory. They've got enough experimentation now that the quantum realm operates through non-locality, meaning that time and space barely even, the Newtonian classical physics of needing to learn something physically to know it, rather than psychically being connected. It's like that has all, at least at a subatomic level, been proven that that's how the subatomic realm exists. So if we are a bunch of subatomic particles, how come it's a foreign concept that we can operate the same, that I can know something without any physical connection to it? You know, so it's starting to understand the essence of us. I get it that while I am here operating with gravity and all the things that Newtonian physics govern us by, I know that this is how it looks. So at a molecular level and above, you are noticing basic Newtonian physics. So we all agree on that. So the science minds or the reductive materialist models, we get it, that that's the thing that governs the third dimensional human experience. But consciousness, the essence, the deeper parts of consciousness, who you really are, goes into the subatomic realms. It disobeys time and space. It is beyond Newtonian physics. And if we are that, then, and our consciousness is almost going into the atom, then we are now experiencing beyond time and space, past lives, all that kind of stuff.
The collective consciousness idea is so interesting. But even these old philosophical questions that were asked are being proven scientifically. Like,
Now
you
they
know,
are.
if a tree falls in the woods
Did it fall?
and no one's around to hear it, did it make a sound? And these are sort of being answered now by quantum entanglement and stuff, which is fucking mind-blowing to think these sorts of people who were asking these questions for years.
That's right. Now we
answers
can
to
do it. Now we can do it because at least we're trying to wonder what's the bridge, right? Trust me, everyone asks this same question. What's the bridge between science and spirituality or metaphysics, right? Where is that bridge? Because right now there's just two camps. You know, it's either, oh, hey, I met a psychic the other day, or I am psychic, and you've got this other side saying, well, no, sorry, I believe in science. You know, and reducing that to just a wishful thinking or just reading, interpreting things or playing games.
That comes back to what you were saying prior to the pod, Delby. Like, why is there no bridge between the spiritual and scientific world? Like,
there is a bridge now. This is what we're getting. So I think scientifically, meaning the microscope, the best we've got now is quantum physics. We're understanding the behavior of the entanglement. All we have to do now is what the panpsychists have done, which is a philosophical school of thought. They have now said, well, if consciousness is at a subatomic level, meaning it's just energy and vibration, right? Then it's like, well, now all these phenomenal things that are happening to us, it starts to at least have some grounding because we know that at a subatomic level, time and space, physicality, local theory, Newtonian physics doesn't happen.
So instead of it being some sort of woo-woo spiritual thing, it ends up being quite a scientific thing that we just don't understand
That's
yet.
right. But what we care, right, instead of trying to prove something, what we're just trying to figure out is how does this affect the human experience, right? Really, you can prove a whole bunch of facts, but really always comes down to what does this change about the human experience by knowing this stuff, right? So say to run a system, an economic or medical system, psychological system for intervention, you can't do that if you don't have some scientific explanation of causality, right? To make sense of it, or else it's like, well, you can't replicate it. What is it why is it this person's going to past life? You know, there's nothing really grounding in mainstream science that says this is worth changing a system over, a belief of a psychological model. But there is, they just don't want to look. It's in the School of Virginia, the University of Virginia. They have a ton of research there. That's where it's at, academically studied, where they've gone deep and deep into past lives, psychic phenomena.
What have they been finding out?
Well, they now know, it's like without even a shred of doubt, that there is human physicality and then there is spirit or consciousness. They are not the same. They interact with each other, but we are not fundamentally biology, and then consciousness emerges. So to make this very simple, by the way, guys, if we talk about reductive materialism, meaning the people that believe in, say, that your dreams and your psychic stuff just comes from brain excitement, right? Your fear of death creating stuff, but it's not real. They are traditionally what we call physicalists or materialists, right? Or reductive materialists. That everything fundamentally in the universe, it comes down to matter. And then our consciousness from brain activity creates these phenomenal experiences of thought, memories, dreams and all that. But it just came from brain activity. So it's not special as you think it is. That's the current side of camp of reductive materialism that governs objective science today. Those are the people that are saying, well, sorry, I believe in science. But that's not science. That is a version of science called reductive materialism or logical science.
So your brain has created anything you have in a dream. It's just because your brain's gone, hey, we need to process this.
Process
this is
it,
what's happening.
run some
And the
neurons.
people who
yeah.
say trust the science also say trust the vax. And they also say that a woman can be a man. So
right.
I'm just throwing it out there. The science is flawed.
Yeah.
If you want to mess with someone, right, and if they say, well, everything comes down to biology, just ask them, where do memories sit in biology then? And they might say, well, your brain. So where? If they know a bit about the brain, they'll say your hippocampus lights up when, that's what we notice on an fMRI scan or an E. And so you're saying, well, the hippocampus, if you cut open the hippocampus, show me the point where the 25th of August 1996 is.
It's an interesting thing.
Right? And it's like, you can't do that, right? So you cannot reduce a memory to a physical location in a body. Correct. So now we know memories are actually nowhere in the physical body, yet it governs the entire experience of a human.
Yeah.
Memories.
So we've got our own cloud.
Yes, you have your own cloud in the ether.
That's a good way of thinking about it.
It doesn't exist in biology.
That blows my mind, right? Like I've got our own theory, which ties into what you're saying, just about the pod, where I go pull up a random word, and the random word could be like orange, and my aim is let's talk about something that's happened to us with orange, and you've got these memories that you haven't ever accessed, and you pull them out of wherever the fuck it was, and you forgot that it was even there.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, I can't possibly have 36 years of memories in my brain, man. It can't just be stored there. It's being stored somewhere else, and I'm accessing it from some other point.
So the reductive materialist will say to you, well, that's just your limited capacity of cognition to realize that your brain actually has the capacity to remember everything. Yeah. Right? So that doesn't still, for a scientific mind, doesn't justify that there is something more.
And I can see that. I can see that side as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
However, right, this is what if someone recalls something that they have never experienced, and it can be proven that they've never experienced. Now, this is where the debate is for the past life, reincarnation, academic debates are. This is where I went into, right? So my master's research was on this. It's on the phenomenal things that are happening that we can measure, we can see it, right? We can observe it empirically, right? This person could recall details of a lifetime from 200 years ago that she's never been to this country. There was no internet. There was no digital footprint of this life, yet they could recall the names of the family members, the type of work they did, how they died, the townsman, honorable, blah, 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 was this person at that place there. And you know what? You take that person to that location and you find out that everything they said was real. How do you make sense of that? That disobeys Newtonian physics, reductive materialism.
When it's verified knowledge from a place they've never been.
And trust me, if everyone's, that doesn't exist, it's like, yes, it does. It absolutely does. My entire research was on discovering these cases. We have a great Australian researcher called Peter Ramsay, still alive. He did one of the most, I think it's crazy how little attention it's gotten. The most comprehensive scientific study ever done, I think, in the world. And it was a guy it was conducted in 1981. Yep. And he's as a psychologist over in New South Wales, and he was a filmmaker and a researcher. He was doing what I was doing, hypnotizing people. And then people started talking about past lives. He's like, what the hell is this? Same thing happened to me. And then he set up a proper experiment where he had rigorous controls in place to figure out what are these guys doing, right? He eventually broke it down to picking 4 participants, clients of his, that were speaking with a lot of detail about these other lifetimes.
And when you say clients, it's not the actual client speaking, right? It's the soul or whatever the thing that's coming through.
Yeah, good question.
Them or someone else, let's just say it's coming from their mouth.
Collective.
But there is a higher part above their ego. That's all we know. So regardless of what we call it, the ego is here and it believes this. So particular example, Gwen McDonald was one of the participants of Peter Ramsay's study. Gwen McDonald has never been out of New South Wales ever in her life. She was, I'm going to get the age wrong, but she was maybe late 50s or early 60s. And so she'd never left New South Wales in her life, didn't believe in spirituality. She thought it was quite laughable, very skeptical. She didn't realize that. So that's her egoic beliefs, right? Yep. When she went under trance with Peter, she's now talking about a whole other lifetime in Somerset, England, right? With detail from like 1780 something, right? Detailed, real detailed. And then she was uncovering details after details, which were verified.
So how is this controlled in regards to what's to stop this person having done a little bit of research on someone and being like, I want to be part of this and prove it, so I'm just going to fake it and do this research.
Okay, so
how do we control this?
I'll give you 2 things now, right? So she's while under trance in New South Wales. It's all video recorded. So this is a free video on YouTube. You can watch the tour. I think it's like an hour and a half or something. Anyway, she's under trance. She is giving some detail about a mother's maiden name. Her name was Mary Rose Duncan. That was her name that she gave as this other lifetime. Her mother's maiden name from this life was like Lethbridge or something like that. She said there is Honourable Archibald something who was the townsman in this location. Cool. So she's getting all this data. The house that I stayed in has a window here. It's the white colour here. The yard's like this. And there is a stone. This is where it gets crazy, right? So the stone in this area, in this room where the window's there is one stone in the middle which has this squiggle. So while she's under trance, he asks her, can you draw that squiggle, this particular... And she draws this squiggly line, all right, this particular pattern that was in this stone. Wow. And then, anyway, so what he does, she also talks about some quarry that was next to it, 2 k's down the road as well. So she had all this detail about this lifetime. What he does is he takes her, flies her for the first time on record to Somerset. And by the way, she called her house a tallet. And a tallet is a unique colloquial term that they used in Somerset, England in the 1800s and in the 18th century.
So it's like
it's a very unique language.
Well, it'd be like an American saying eshay.
Yeah.
They have no context.
You got it. There's no context. And it was unique for that area as well. Anyway, so he takes her, blindfolds her, and you can see it all on film. They drops her in the middle of this town of Somerset to just see what happens to her first.
Crazy way to treat a dementia patient.
Where am I?
Yeah.
And what his hypothesis was, if she is psychically connected to this other life, maybe she'll start recalling things as she sees it. So she starts wandering through this town. He's following her, prompting nothing.
Yeah.
And it starts to come back to her. You can see her pointing at things, and they find the building where this Honourable Archibald something was there. They knock on the door, and there's no digital archives. So they ask him. They pull out the archives of 200 years ago, and there's Honourable Archibald something written. His name, sick. He was there. All right, and there's no digital footprint whatsoever. Okay. Anyway, he says, okay, see if you can, it's all coming back to her. There was a pub there, she starts saying, it's all like remembering sort of. And said, my house, and starts walking through.
Was she freaking out while she's doing this?
She's getting emotional that she can remember it.
Because was she she was not in trance at this point?
No, not in trance. She's walking, right? It's all like she's remembering from a dream, she said it felt like. Yeah. So she's walking to her house, right?
Yeah.
Crossing this little bridge and stuff, and it's like, she's getting more and more excited. You can see this beautiful old lady, and she's saying, oh, it's just over this hill. I'm sure of it. There it is, this white cottage in the middle of this hill by itself, right? And it's covered, and there are people living there. And now there's this house, and all of a sudden they knock on the door, people come out, and she says, Peter's like, oh, so you said there was a window here, but there's actually no window there, and it's just all brick. But anyway, the owners let everyone in, and there it was on the inside. You could see the frame of the window that was there. It's been bricked up. And so there it was. And then she's like, this is where the stone was. But now it's being used as a barn. There's ducks everywhere, geese everywhere, and there's shit covering the whole thing. Right? So it's thick in mud like this far. And so Peter's like, okay, for the sake of this experiment, can we hire some people to dig up all this mud and see if we can find this stone? And so they dig up all this shit pretty much, and there it is right in the middle of it. This one stone that she described with the same squiggly mark.
It's fucking unreal. I've heard a sword of the stone, but shit in the stone is like the most epic. That's sick. I love that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's that's good, because I was going to say what in my head, like just because I buy in. I believe what you're saying. Delby believes what you're saying. I believe. But I'm trying to be skeptical here, just try and really push this question. So
she's like, 60, so she doesn't know how to use Google Maps for a start, or Google Earth, and it would have been covered over.
So the stone really is the biggest one, and then potentially the window being blocked up. So it really does take away the aspect of potentially going there and having
say it's a one in. Say it's a one in, right? So now we want to know:
is that a repeatable?
Is it repeatable? Yeah. Has there been any other cases? Absolutely.
Well, look at this. I don't know. I'm going to butcher the details of it, but the young kid who said he was killed by someone, took him to went to the address, showed where they were dressed. They dug up a body, found out who it was, and then the guy got arrested for actually murdering.
Is that an old wives' tale one?
It's not the old wives' tale, because that one had been verified, and that was an interesting one. But there's still no
Because there's a heap of young kids that still think that they're in the other body, right? Those.
Yeah, the lead researcher for that in the world is a guy who's died now, Dr. Ian Stevenson, who was a psychiatrist in Virginia.
That's right. His next life will come back as
Yeah,
well.
hopefully he remembers all his research too.
Yeah.
But that's all his work is done at the School of Medicine at the University of Virginia. It's the division is called DOPS, Division of Parapsychological Studies. That's where you'll find kid studies like through the roof.
Yeah, because they haven't disconnected from their past.
Correct. So we're talking about, okay, well, these are cases of kids saying, this was my name, this is how I died, this is my family's name. They're American kid, but they're talking about a life in India.
Yeah.
With so much detail. So what they've done is through experimentation is that they've gone to these locations to see if this information is accurate. And out of, I think, one particular study he did, there was like 2,500 kids that were reporting it. He's cancelled out like 1,000 of them, as there's too many grey areas, but 1,500 of them have been verified as we could not explain. This is from rigorous science as well, and sensible psychiatrist. Dr. Ian Stevenson was no little chump. He was like a pioneer of psychiatry at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the name for people listening on the YouTube of the Dr. Mary one? What was it? Where you could see it? Where she
YouTube,
went
just type, I think it's reincarnation, just put 1981. Documentary Reincarnation 1981.
Cool.
It's Peter Ramster.
R-A-M-S-T-E-R.
So I'm interested. Have you done past life regression for yourself?
I have, one by another person. Two by other people, and then myself. You could say I can drop into a meditative state or a hypnotic state and start to sense and feel things. Yeah,
my ego stops me from being hypnotized because like I read a ton on NLP, and like anytime I've tried to go to a hypnosis, I've tried to go to a past life regression. I just knew what they were doing. Like when they're talking to me, I'm like, oh, they're getting me to do this. These words are matching up with this.
Yeah.
That's because you're thinking as well. You're not shutting off.
So you can't get into that state.
You know how you were talking before the potty, you were saying that you're hypervigilant, right? Say it looks like ADD or ADHD, right? Yeah. Your hypervigilance, right, that would come from, if I had to guess, a childhood of chaos, needing to be making sure that you were safe, because life was unpredictable, unpredictable.
That's what Chelsea said.
Yeah, that's usually the theory, right? That can look into that, but that's a theory. So it just means that when someone is going to do something to me, it's like, well, things have happened in my life where when I let go, it didn't turn out well for me.
Yeah, every relationship I've been.
So why should I really, right? So the hypervigilant young boy in you, or say not even the young boy, but the protector that he's employed is like on super guard.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm making sure that vulnerable little boy that once experienced that level of pain never goes there again. And so I'm going to make sure I'm aware of everything this person's doing, right? Because that's how I survive. That's how I take care of me. Only I take care of me.
Yeah.
And so that's why it would be harder for you to let go. But it's not an unnatural state that you put yourself in almost daily. Right? People make this big song and dance about the hypnotic state. It's a daily phenomenon that you do. Daydreaming is part of it. Yeah. Do you drive?
Yeah.
So you ever gone through a set of traffic lights and wondered, shit, was that even green?
Yeah, the cops pulled me over. yeah. But mine often is like, I'll go to the cafe, and then I'll just like stare out the window.
Yeah, dude.
And then like,
what even dreaming?
Then I'll
what do you think going to bed and dreaming is?
Yeah, I drop out of it, and I've read somewhere like, whatever, if I'm ADHD, whatever, that's like, that's your like connecting thing. Like, even though you just sit there zoning out, don't snap yourself out of it because you're just being present in that moment and not forgetting what's happened before that. But yeah, when you're driving, similar experiences.
That's hypnosis, man.
Yeah.
Essentially, but I think you guys had a hypnotist on here recently.
Yeah, Matt Hale.
Yeah.
So
he's more of the comedy style.
So when he hypnotizes someone, you would have gone into alpha brainwave, right? Which is
that's where I stay, dog.
there's always one guy. All right, well, you stay on alpha. We'll leave Delby on alpha. We'll go to theta. And so,
what is that one?
Theta. So right now we're in beta. So conversational styles, the waking state is characterized by beta, right? Alpha is the hypnotic state, the first stage of hypnosis, where you're somewhat in trance, or they might call the zone. I'm in the zone, you know. So that's the alpha. And then before you sleep, you're drifting away. That's theta. So where I'd hypnotize people, it's not alpha. I'll go through the alpha state and I'll take you to theta, which is 3 to 8 hertz of your brain activity.
So is sleep almost like a state of hypnosis or a state of
they call it hypnagogic
meditation?
state or somnambulistic, right?
Hypnagogic?
Hypnagogic, yeah. So your body is now can't tell.
Hypnagogic? Fuck that, pussy. Ain't got time to sleep, motherfucker.
You can keep your hypnagogic, mate. So it's characterized by the I don't know what's real and not real. So you're allowing yourself to just think about the day, then that thing goes about to what happened last week, and before you know, you're allowing yourself to live on that content of the mind with depth. There's no questioning of it until you know you're dreaming. So you've gone past theta. Theta is pretty much the average sleep, and then you'll drop into delta, which is deep sleep. You know, about three times a night or twice a night.
That's interesting. Would you be able to, let's say you try to get me through alpha, and I get to that theta? Would you be able to stop my ego coming in and going, this isn't real, man? Fucking get back.
I can't say what I can or can't do. All I know is that I have done that with others that have ADHD. So my role isn't to hypnotize you. My role is to help you feel safe.
Yeah, okay.
In that safe feeling.
Yeah.
What happens is that protector that you've employed to make sure you stay safe forever and you take care of you, I would be talking to him.
Yeah. Have you taught your voice and tone and cadence to do that? Because you're very like talking
relaxed.
now. Yeah, very. I feel very calm.
I need you to read me my bedtime stories.
Yeah, can you read me a story? Yeah.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy.
I'm an Indian.
It must play a role. The tone, cadence, absolutely. Everything. Yeah.
All it is, you're trying to generate an experience for the person, right? And so if my voice, it just helps someone. If I'm connected to my heart space, meaning that I'm open, I'm not trying to hypnotize anyone. I'm really just turning up in my relaxed state. That has an effect on how you receive me, you know. And so if you hear that in my voice, it's going to give you permission to let go more and more. But if I'm like, focus here now, you can slightly be aware of that. It's like you can hypnotize someone like that. But if someone's like playing the I don't trust you game, then I don't need, because I can use those same techniques, but it's like for these types of cases, I don't need to. I'll do it in more of a gentle way where you are allowing yourself to drift away.
Now, would my preconceived idea of what's happened affect that, or does that completely disappear? Because I won't say what it is because I really want to see you and do it. I probably don't have time to do it live. But
we should definitely book in and do it.
One of my friends has
record it.
She went and did a thing, and she reckons that I was with her, and she's come up with this whole thing because we have this shared past, both of us have this same feeling of something that's happened to us.
Yeah.
And I've never told anyone that before.
Very common.
She'd never told anyone. And when we said it, we're like, what the fuck? Like, how? It's such a random thing. I'll tell you later. But after I do it because I don't want to ding it. And then she went and saw a past life, someone from Michael Newton's training academy in Perth. I think there's like one person potentially. And then, that came up. And I don't know if that's just her subconscious explaining it and making it up. So I want to know if I do it, if I have the exact same experience, then that would be fucking.
Would you already now be biased?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Like, would my idea of what's happened, would that come up because I already have it?
It's like a preconceived.
You know? So put it this way, right? This is a great question. So good, because what we're talking about is two different things. One is the validity of it is now contaminated. So scientifically, you could say, well, it's contaminated. You already had a preconceived idea.
Yeah.
And even if you forgot about it, say there was something when you were 5 years old, you were experiencing something in Egypt in a museum, and then all of a sudden you have a past life that's very similar to what you saw as a 5-year-old, but you don't have any recollection of that 5-year experience. Yes. You believe, this was an actual, you have actually experienced it in this life, so it can be explained through reductive materialism, but you've forgotten. It's called cryptomnesia, and so we don't know what you can't remember. Yeah. However, what's more significant therapeutically is that if you went into this experience, right, and you were emotionally connecting to it, meaning there was a display of heightened emotion, sadness, grief, whatever it is, right, it's very hard to fake that. Yeah, this is why hypnotists on stage even will, to validate their work, to show that someone is hypnotized, they will draw upon emotions like laughter and then be able to switch it off immediately. Yeah. Very hard to do if you're in an awaking state. Yeah. So they'll use emotion because emotions are very hard to fake, especially grief, when we have such a strong protective layer to go avoid negative grief or sad feelings, negative feelings. But when you go into these states, and this is what happens with these past life things. I don't need to validate them anymore. But you watch this person. One, they are having a very rich emotional experience. You know, the sadness, the grief over a child that they've never met. Why are they experiencing holding it and crying over it at the loss of it? Why is it that their partner is leaving them for war and they are in like hysterics when they've never met this person in this physical life? You could say, well, they're just having a dream experience, you know.
Nicolas Cage.
Playing at a movie. Yeah, right. It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
But essentially, when it starts, you see crossovers in their life now. It's like, okay, this loss here is a pattern that you're noticing. So karmic cycles was the word you used, right? You're seeing these same themes operate in this life here very, very synchronously. And then they make sense of it in a way that enriches their life.
Right.
The wisdom that they extract from that past life experience, that enriches their life here. Then it's like, who cares if it's real or not? It was, when something is emotional, it's lived experience, which makes it real for your subjective reality.
And as long as it helps, it's almost like, well, fuck.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Now, do you have to be careful about leaving something unresolved where like they're in a past life and there's a war and then they come out of the state and they're like, fuck, man, like, where's my brothers? Where's my wife?
Yeah,
Great question. So these sessions are 3-hour sessions. If someone wants to experience this, then it's 3-hour sessions, and I leave 1 hour extra because you want to be able to close this off as well. All it is you want them to be able to resolve it. So imagine opening a chapter of grief and trauma, but then it's like, oh, sorry, mate, my time's up. Leaves like fragmented, you know, like half can't drive properly. So yes, as a duty of care, you need to make sure this person in their egoic state can compartmentalize it, categorize it, where it makes sense enough. To give you an example, it was funny that this guy was at a party and like full skeptic and thought I was talking shit and that I must be naive to believe in all this stuff. And really having a crack at my credibility, you know. That's cool. So I'm actually not here to prove anything, but I was like, you can come and experience a session if you want, you know, knowing that you are full skeptic and atheist and all that. Come and experience it for yourself. You know, I'm not trying to prove anything, just for more of a therapy experience. It, man, this guy drops into like England 1885, man, and he's a captain of a ship and he's experiencing loss and grief of his family, and then he became corrupt, and then he's feeling disgusting and dirty on himself that he's become corrupt. He was like a general, you know, and he lived by a code, and he broke that code for greed, you know, and in this war, he stole from his own people. So he was disloyal. And then he took a ship out. He experienced taking a ship out by himself in the nighttime. The moon was glaring, and he just jumps in the water for suicide and he kills himself, right? And he experiences this, and his eyes open like a zombie in my couch, right? I'm like, and he goes and he looks at me and goes, Boris, what the fuck was that? I don't insert myself, I'm just like, what do you think it was? He goes like, I feel angry at myself, man. I feel dirty. Like, why do I feel so corrupt? I'm corrupt. He's trying to piece it together, and he's like, what was that, Boris? Was that real? Or am I making that up? He's like, it felt like a memory, like it's real. And he's now, because it's so far from his egoic belief of atheism and all this stuff, while he experienced, which felt very real. It was him while in this other body. So he can't piece it together. I need a cigarette, Boris. He gets up and smoking out the front of my office, like walking backwards and forwards. He's like, well. So anyway, came back in, and guess what? Oh, I can't say too much detail, but no, I can't, because he's got a tattoo that relates to how he died, and he doesn't know why he got that tattoo. Also a phobia of water, doesn't know why. And very.
How would you go about mending that then? Do you have to come to terms with what's happened in a past life to be able to move forward in this one, or are we reliving this life until we learn that lesson? Like, let's say the general that he was, the lesson that he had to learn was not to be corrupted by greed, and then he's lived another life where he's been offered this opportunity. Is it by chance, or do you see a repeating pattern?
You do.
Is the way he's fixing his past life by his soul has somehow clashed with you at this party, now he's going to fix that? And that was his path, or what's to go with that?
Maybe that's his path, right? That's what we're assuming, that everything is purposeful, right? If you believe that. It does seem that way. But the themes across, let's say, prioritizing the material monetary world was another theme in this life as well. Right? So it's as if his higher mind is trying to show him that, hey, look at the themes. It's not generating any happiness. You don't actually have to look at your past life to resolve it, because the karmic cycles will show you the same themes. Say cut past lives out. The same trauma you've experienced in childhood that you see presenting itself over and over in every relationship. You don't have to look at your childhood. If you want, it's great to see the origin. Say, that makes sense. Why this is great, but still. What do you do about the patterns? You still have to take action. You have to notice it, that it's not helping you in any kind of way. So you get them to be more consciously aware of their unconscious patterns. I'm just doing this, and it might be past life, it could be childhood, it could be both, that it's all playing itself out. It doesn't really matter, but essentially you're trying to get them to be more consciously aware so their life is happening for them, not to them.
So what role, and we touched on, we were having a yarn before the podcast started, and we don't have long, so... psychedelics.
Yeah.
You're talking about psychedelics and their role in healing traumas and stuff like that. So, what role do they play? And is that something you delve into, or recommend, or is there? What's the
there's a
there?
sensible way to navigate that world. So I have, full disclosure, I have experienced mushrooms maybe 5 times, 6 times therapeutically. Not in barley shakes or anything like that.
Well, and this is what I was saying before. I've done it for fun, but never for.
I've never done it for fun.
For the experience, I think. Delby, did you say you've done it for experience and fun, or a bit of both?
Each time I've done it, except for in Amsterdam, that was just for fun. But any time here, it's been by myself.
For an experience.
So okay, put it this way: when you are trying to remember who you are, which is why I do the work that I do, I'm trying to help an individual remember who they are beneath the egoic primal instincts of survival, so you can be more conscious, right? That's the aim. How one gets there doesn't matter. You're trying to not dissolve the ego or remove the ego, just temporarily rest it to the side, so I get to feel and sense myself, the true sense of I, beyond everything that I've experienced here. So I can separate the dual nature of my existence, meaning my body and all of its experience, accumulated experience, social learning, opposed to my true essence of spirit, my consciousness, whatever that energy source, which is timeless, the transcendental part of us. I'm trying to get people to navigate that. So mushrooms is another tool where it can dissolve the ego. Dissolve's not the right word, but it can check your ego or just rest it aside and get you to experience consciousness, and it will be very unique for you. So it's not like mushrooms will take you to the same place. It has a signature about mushrooms, but essentially it's there to do the same task, which is to remove the ego. It's not cheating. No. It's not cheating at all. I mean, it's there in nature. So is everything purposeful? If it does that and you choose to experience it that way, so do it. But again, why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I'm trying to know myself better. If you find that some of these psychonauts, I did bloody 12 grams, I did 15 grams, 20 grams dry, and they're doing it weekend, monthly, they've been doing it for years. It's like, what are you doing? You haven't got the message yet. Obviously, you're not listening. You know?
And I think Dr. Stephen Bright, we had him on before. I don't know if you know his work, but he spoke about psychedelics and basically being a cheap way to experiencing, for lack of a better word, God. And he's like, if you had that cheat code, why wouldn't you use it? Doesn't necessarily, you don't sometimes have to do the work. Sometimes doing the work is the better way to do it. But if you've got that opportunity to have the cheat code to have that experience, why wouldn't you use it?
Maybe we're wasting our time. I mean, talk therapy in psychology is significantly more of a waste of a time than people are willing to admit. It's not a complete waste of time, but we are dragging out mental health issues with talk therapy. We now know psychedelic assisted therapy with sensible people with the right framework is the future, as long as we just get out of our own way, with all its red tape. But that will be the future, because it's not a cheat. It will show an individual beyond what they have egoically constructed, which is false. It will show you truth. It will be uncomfortable as fuck. Good. That's what it's meant to do. It means you're aligning with truth. What you do with that, the integration, is key.
And so, like, even recently, I know I've figured out what my life path is. But that's still my ego, I guess.
I find it so, like, it's a trigger for me when people think that they figured shit out. It's like, what makes you so fucking good that you think you know? I'm an old soul. Anyone that says they're an old soul, I'm like, you're not. Like, if you were an old, like, you are not God. Like, we don't have that power. Like, I'm an old soul. I know that I'm fucking this and this. It's like, do you? Or do you just think you do? And that pisses me off. You might.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it says about me, but for someone else to come and be like, yeah, I know my life path. I'm
So,
back. It's
but I truly believe that I've gotten to this point now where I believe I don't have to achieve anything. I just have to be an example to everyone of what's possible. That's what I am. That's what I feel like. And I don't know whether that's my ego.
I reckon for sure.
Because I just want people
you're true.
to.
If you didn't, if it wasn't ego, you wouldn't say, I want to be an example for others. It'll just, I'm going to do what I'm doing.
Exactly.
For me.
No, but exactly. I didn't need to bring it up then, but that's probably my ego wanting to say that potentially. But that's what I truly believe inside. Like, I don't have to achieve, I'm not trying to do anything except for be an example of, or not even trying to be an example, but I know that's what I am, is an example of what you can do, just like you are. An example of someone who was not happy, who had a mortgage, a wife,
I
a
still
kid,
could be happy.
did the thing, and not necessarily that I'm happy or fixed or cured or perfect, but the fact that you can do anything, but it's not an overnight thing. Some people do that, like some people get the overnight success, but we've had to work fucking hard, and we're nowhere near at a point at which we would love to be
With the podcast.
for example, and just in life in general.
That'll change after this podcast.
But by seeing this as an example of what you can achieve with hard work, and by just trying, I think I get messages pretty commonly. I think you started getting messages about how it's inspirational to see someone try and do something like that.
Yeah,
that's all. I don't care about anything else.
It would be more egoic to not admit that I am providing a quality service that is enriching other people's lives. It would be more egoic to deny that truth. Because you could say, well, if I say something good about myself, that's ego. That's an old story. That's a very young, primal, immature thing to say just because you're saying something good about yourself.
Yeah.
No. If you've been shut down for shining too brightly in your life and you need to stay in your lane so others aren't, triggered by your success, then your ego has learnt that I need to dim my light. I need to keep my truth quiet so others aren't provoked or triggered by me, right? That means it's adaptable. It's maladaptive. Like your ego has adapted you to keep your, that's not me, or I'm not good looking, they can't take compliments, or, you can't admit out loud that, no, I am providing an absolutely beautiful service for humanity and I wear that proudly. Yeah. That's not an egoic thing. That is just honoring what you know to be true in any given moment with conviction. Yeah. You could say, well, it's more egoic and protective because I used to experience people really shutting me down. Yeah. And so you will deny your truth. Ego is denial of truth, I
feel like that wraps up with some really great advice. Whenever someone fucks up, you don't always go, oh, man, you're the fucking worst ever. But when you fuck up, you're like, man, I'm so dumb. I'm a piece of shit. If you wouldn't speak to someone else like that,
why would you speak
to yourself like that? But it goes with what you've just said there. Like, if we're doing something that we feel is amazing, like, man, I'm loving what I'm doing. This is great. I'm so proud of this journey.
Yeah, it should be.
If it wasn't me, I'd say, hey, Branchy, man, fuck, you're doing killer. Like, I love what you're doing. Why can't you say that about yourself to yourself? Because society's said, nah, you're arrogant, you're tall poppy syndrome, shut the fuck up.
And this, initially my issue with what I was doing was I was telling people they should be doing it. And this is how you do it instead of, and where now I've moved to, and I don't think you really ever fell for that trap, but I've seen other people doing this, saying this is, you have to do this.
Do it, yeah.
Now
this has worked for me.
Now we just do it. Yeah. And we put out, we're pretty lucky. We got a voice, we got a platform where we can actually say that, and then it becomes telling people what we're doing. But all I am trying to do is just do. And if people like what they see, they can reach out and just do it. I put that on my vision board yesterday, actually. Just do it.
Yeah, nice. I did want to ask Nike. Before, we got a little bit, 10 minutes.
Yeah. 10
minutes. What's your what's the furthest you've gone back in a past life? And if you've enjoyed this, we'd love to have you back on.
Oh, 100%, yes.
Or
even just
I want to come and see
Patreon stuff.
Yeah, I want to come and see you and do a past life. What's the furthest you've gone back, except for like the first language? And are there any other really compelling past lives which has helped them heal or be at their optimal performance now? Like, has there been anything really poignant? Like that guy that jumped off the ship, has that helped him now? Or have you got a few case studies that you found personally? Because it's always good to hear about ones that we've seen in the news, but your personal ones that can't be repeated anywhere else.
Yeah. How far back? So we have modern civilizations, say after the deluge, after the floods, you've got those civilizations like ancient Egypt and the Mesopotamian times that heaps of lives go back to there, right? You could say, so that was the beginning of modern civilization, but you could say people have gone back to more difficult ones to validate. Atlantean times.
Right.
Do you even believe in Atlantean times? Or what about the people that created those earlier civilizations? Or what happened there? So
does that coincide with the Bible talking about the floods, and there's this theory that there wasn't an advanced civilization before that? Is that where some of these past lives go to?
Yeah, they
and we've never heard of it.
A lot of
these,
a lot of these lives that have regressed people, and to keep it somewhat scientifically valid, is a lot of these people had no prior belief in Atlantis that it existed, and what they've done is they've gone to a life of they are in Atlantis or experiencing that, and I didn't do much research on it, so I'm just as clueless as they are navigating this thing. But then when you research some of these descriptions of it, it's like they're pretty bang on, and that there wasn't one race of people. There was all these different races, and reptilians as well that were benevolent and malevolent, good and bad.
We need you back.
So they've talked about a reptilian race.
Yeah.
Well, like the Anunnaki.
So remember I told you about an experiment that I did?
Yeah.
It was with this young fella, right? And I was like, hey, how do you feel about these? He said, I feel great. When I come out, I feel charged, rejuvenated. I was like, hey, would you be happy to do an experiment with me? I won't charge you for my time. You'll experience it, but I'll be setting up a few questions to sort of look for validation on this, right? Because he was able to drop into these ancient times with ease, right? And this Kleinhead character he could drop into had this seemed like the all-knowing knowledge of our people.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. So I started reading books on ancient civilizations, Egypt, and Zachariah Sitchin's book, The 12th Planet. His books were all on the interpretations and translations of the Sumerian tablets that were dug up, right? So read all his stuff, and that's where Anunnaki were there and stuff like that. So I've researched all that. I've formulated 20 questions that I would ask him in his awaking state, like now, like you guys are, and then see how many got correct, and then ask him the same questions while under regression, right? Yeah. And so there were questions that you'd have to have some form of deeper knowledge of ancient times or these stories. And so anyway, in the waking state, he got 19 incorrect, and one was like grey. Yeah. In the deep state of the Kleinhead perspective, he had 19 correct. Wow. He could describe them as the texts have put them, right? And so cool. I asked about the Anunnaki. He says these were a race of beings that were master geneticists that spliced our DNA with theirs. And I was like, got it. I asked, okay, when did that happen? And he says, you are familiar with the missing link in your anthropology? Yeah. I said, yes. He says, this is where they took your DNA, took it back to their home, and spliced your DNA with theirs. Wow. As an experiment. Yeah. Love that. And so this is the missing link. This is why you guys spiked in consciousness. And so he gave,
because it was like over 200,000 years.
Yeah, 255,000 years ago.
Which we went bang, like
which
that doesn't,
a 2 million year spike in within a short amount of time.
Doesn't happen. Yeah.
So there's theories of the stoned ape where they took mushrooms and consciousness peaked. Who knows? But I don't even know. So I'm not speaking if this is true, but this is what the client said at the time. Yeah. And then I asked, this is what's interesting. I said, where are they from? Yeah, that was my next question. Right? Yeah. Where are they from? And he goes, I cannot say. Ooh. And I said, because you don't know or you're not allowed to. And he says, I have got permission to tell you that. Wow. And so I said, you're establishing a hierarchy then. There are people above you in some sort of authoritarian position. He says, yes. Wow. So what would happen if you told me? He says, I would experience a different kind of death to you, but a similar death. I was like, death on a different level? Anyway, so then I asked, because I had on my notes, Nibiru was what Zachariah Sitchin translated. Yeah. So I said, what is Nibiru? After a few seconds, he says, this is where they're from. And that's what the text says as well.
But he's not allowed to tell you where they're from.
But because I asked the right questions and said it.
Wow, because Nibiru is the theory that there's a planet that's where the Anunnaki originate. That's right. Where is it? Where is it in comparison to our solar system?
It's meant to be
hidden?
Linked to our sun, and it's a long orbit.
Don't know.
It's a long orbit,
right?
Yeah. So it comes around every.
Oh man, so cool.
By the tablets, it comes around every I can't remember. I'm going to say every 300,000 years or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like a long orbit.
What else did you ask? Did you
I
learn
asked
anything?
about the king list of Sumerian king lists as well, like
Yeah.
the names of certain kings, and he got them correct.
Wow.
And I asked about the Epic of Gilgamesh. So the Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the ancient epics from these texts of Sumerian times of a god.
Actually, sorry, it's 12,500 years, and it works around with every ice age. That's what it was.
Okay.
Which,
Yeah.
which would work.
What's Gilgamesh?
Gilgamesh is this epic. So it's a story of a particular king. And so I asked him about this Epic of Gilgamesh. And he experienced as if he was telling it as his life. He says, I am
Is this
the
the floods?
king of Uruk.
The floods? Is that
After.
Gilgamesh? After the
Gilgamesh,
floods.
yeah. The story of Gilgamesh. And then it was like this king, and he explained it, and he said it was correct. It was the rule of Uruk, which was one of the first cities in Sumer, Sumerian times, and he got that correct. And he didn't know that in the awaking state.
Yeah.
And then he explained he had a friend called Enkidu that was like his brother, and that's how the epic
Enki?
goes. Enkidu, yeah. Enkidu was the name. And so this was all coming through him now in this state.
Sick.
Getting it all correct of how the epic goes anyway.
That's nuts. And the one he got wrong was probably right, and we've got it wrong.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Fuck. That's awesome,
Man,
man. I love that.
We're running low on time because we
Okay.
still have to do our sponsors and stuff after, but fuck.
Do you want me to share that I'll share one success
Yeah, of
story
course,
then?
yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah,
Because
of
you
course,
asked.
mate.
Yeah.
I'll just say one. There was a famous psychic in Perth. She had a best friend, couldn't help her. She contacts me and says, I need you to help my best friend because her trauma, her issues is deep in past lives, masculine trauma. I can't reach it to heal psychically, but you can. And I was like, well, how does she even know that I can? Anyway, she's psychic. I'll just go with it. Sends her friend to me. And so she's with me. She's in like mid-40s and just relationship of abuse after abuse. Six partners all abusing the hell out of her. So there's this theme in her life of men abusing her. I drop her in. She experiences 3 other lifetimes of men just absolutely destroying her, eventually to her death, right? And so one was in like Bristol, England. She was 18, a witch being dragged through the town and then being strung up and hung. But it was the way the man was grabbing and holding which really traumatized her. She felt like such an object, you know, beyond.
Was she
person.
actually a witch, or was she accused?
No,
of being
she
a witch?
wasn't.
Okay.
No, back then, it was someone that was working
Yeah.
with medicine, or they actually had gifts to some capacity psychically,
Right.
and it scared the hell out of the church and people that were around that time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're seeing a lot of those stories come back now. But anyway, that was one of them. Another one was in Germany. Another past life she had was in Germany, 1883. Living with a husband, very abusive man, eventually led to one fight in the kitchen where he stabs her in the back, right, physically, and kills her. Puts her body under the house. People are knocking on the door. Where's so and so? And she's watching. She's observing in tears and anger, saying, "I'm under the house," and he's lying to them. She's getting angry while under this state. It wasn't until she woke up after we resolved it, got her to clear it, released the energy associated to it, the memories, the ideas. She wakes up and she's like, "Oh my God." She's holding it back and she goes, "Boris, I've had a chronic pain in my back for like 15 years that I have never been able to get rid of. It's gone." And it was right where he stabbed me.
Nice.
So it's as if
Delby, I think you
context.
need to do a bit of past
Yeah.
life on your lower back.
So it's like we resolve the emotional or energetic trauma associated with that lifetime, which created the biological imprint of this other lifetime. And as she resolves it, where its origins were, she physically removed the pain from herself.
That's sick. Love that.
We definitely have to do a session
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's other stuff I've read where there's an ethereal connection between the soul and the body, and then when that leaves, that's what death is and stuff like that. So we can go more into that.
I'll,
It's perfect to end on a cliffhanger. So part 2.
yeah,
will
we'll
be-
definitely get you back on. That
If-
was
if you'd like
if
to.
you'd like to.
Yeah,
That was
of course, yeah.
that was really good. Is there anything you want to plug
Yeah, if
before
people
we go?
want to see you, details, or do they need to find you karmically, or
If you have a personality disorder, please don't come. No, I'm trying to move away from clinical work, actually. So people that are interested in diving into consciousness. So you are somewhat psychologically functioning already. So I'm moving away from your basic anxiety, depression kind of stuff and personality disorders. More to do with now people that are on the cusp, the fringe of exploring themselves, consciousness, trying to optimize their extrasensory experience of this body, technology of the mind. So yeah, absolutely, you can contact me.
Cool.
what's my stuff? I don't even know. BorisWalter.com is my website. You can book through there.
BorisWalter.
Yeah,
Or Boris Walter.
Yeah, Walter.com. And I think my Instagram is Boris Walter Official.
Cool.
That's it. Yeah, you can contact me.
Yeah, we'll put your tags and stuff in the
Awesome.
I'll do more
thing.
talks as well. I've been behind closed doors, just my private practice while doing all this. But I think eventually this will be like on the road doing seminars.
Yeah, it'd be
I want
awesome.
to talk to other therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists that are they see things like this, but they're too scared to have a chat about it.
Yeah.
But we need to get serious and sensible on the convergence of this because it's a part of the human experience.
Yeah.
So what should we do about that? Just because
break-
we can't explain it properly yet.
Yeah,
You know,
Break
we
down the
deny it,
stigma
you
as
know?
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Delby?
Love it. I won't plug anything because we've got Zach on after this.
Yeah.
So just
Easy.
all the shows, DanielDelby.com. This Sunday, free shows, Belmont Festival.
Cool. This show will go out tonight, so I'll say I'm on at Guildford tomorrow.
Cool.
But that's it.
Oh,
Thank you
Can
so
I
much.
shout out to my wife for supporting me and
Yes.
filming the
yeah,
BTS behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff.
The
Thank
crew.
you. Thank you so much for coming on. That was
Yeah.
bloody awesome.
man.
I feel
Love it.
unresolved. I feel like we could do more.
We'll take an
Duty
hour.
of care. Duty of care. But yeah, awesome. And thanks for coming
Thanks,
on.
Ray.
Welcome, man.
Cheers.
Meaningful.
Cool.